Racist doctor lets pregnant black woman die, unaware her husband is FBI. What happens when the people sworn to save lives allow prejudice to guide their decisions? What happens when a moment of bias becomes a fatal mistake? Today's story is one that will shake you, anger you, and leave you questioning how deep injustice can run, even inside hospital walls meant to protect us all. This is not just a story about medicine. It is not just a story about race. It is a story about power, arrogance, and the devastating cost of underestimating someone based on skin color. It's about a woman who walked into a hospital full of hope, carrying new life, trusting that the system would do what it promised. And it's about a man who walked out with a grief so heavy it would later expose a truth no one saw coming. The doctor in this story believed he was untouchable, respected, protected by his white coat and reputation. He believed his assumptions were facts. He believed the woman before him didn't matter enough to save. What he didn't know was that every choice he made was quietly building a case against him, and that the man waiting in the hallway was not who he assumed either. This story will unfold slowly, painfully, and with purpose. Every detail matters. Every decision has consequences. Before we begin, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss stories like this. Your support helps us bring powerful, meaningful stories to light. Nia Carter was 7 months pregnant when she walked into St. Mary's Regional Hospital. She held her belly with one hand and her husband's fingers with the other, breathing slowly as another wave of pain passed through her body. It wasn't supposed to be like this. Her pregnancy had been healthy, monitored, and cautious. But that morning, something felt wrong, deeply wrong. "I don't like this," Nia whispered. "The baby's not moving like before." Her husband, Marcus Carter, squeezed her hand gently. "We're here now. They'll take care of you." Marcus was calm on the outside, but inside, alarms were screaming. He had seen fear before, real fear, in interrogation rooms, crime scenes, and federal briefings. The look on Nia's face wasn't panic. It was instinct. At the front desk, the nurse barely looked up. "Insurance?" she asked flatly. Marcus handed it over. "She's having severe abdominal pain and reduced fetal movement." The nurse sighed, typed slowly, then pointed down the hall. "Have a seat. Someone will call you." They waited. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. Nia's breathing grew shallow. Sweat formed along her hairline. Marcus stood up twice, asking for help, only to be told, "The doctor will see her when he's ready." Finally, a tall white man in his late 50s appeared at the doorway, clipboard in hand. "Carter," he called. That was Dr. Alan Whitmore, head obstetrician, respected, praised, and dangerously confident. He glanced at Nia briefly before turning to Marcus. "She can come in. You can wait here." Marcus frowned. "I'd like to stay with my wife." Dr. Whitmore raised an eyebrow. "Hospital policy." Nia looked back at Marcus, fear in her eyes. He nodded reluctantly. "I'll be right here." Inside the room, Dr. Whitmore asked routine questions, his tone clipped, impatient. "Pain scale?" 8, maybe 9, Nia said. He barely reacted. He didn't order an ultrasound immediately. He didn't call for fetal monitoring. Instead, he glanced at her chart and muttered, "High blood pressure history, figures." Nia frowned. "What does that mean?" He ignored the question. Minutes later, a young nurse entered quietly and whispered something to him after checking Nia's vitals. Dr. Whitmore scoffed. "She's exaggerating. Happens all the time." "But doctor," the nurse said hesitantly, "the fetal heart rate." "I said it's fine," he snapped. Outside, Marcus paced. He watched nurses pass, doctors laugh, time move forward, while his wife was locked behind a closed door. Something in his chest tightened. After 40 minutes, he heard raised voices. Then silence. Suddenly, a crash. Marcus stood up as a nurse rushed past him, calling for help. Moments later, Dr. Whitmore emerged, his face pale but his voice controlled. "Sir, there were complications." Marcus's world slowed. "Where's my wife?" "We're doing everything we can." That was a lie. Inside the room, Nia lay unconscious. Her blood pressure had spiked dangerously high. She had developed severe preeclampsia, something that should have been caught immediately. The baby's oxygen levels had dropped. Alarms rang too late. Doctors scrambled now, but not out of urgency. Out of fear. An hour later, Marcus was called into a private room. A woman in scrubs avoided his eyes. "I'm so sorry, we lost her." Marcus didn't speak. "And the baby?" he asked quietly. She swallowed. "We couldn't save the baby either." The room spun. Marcus sat down slowly, his hands trembling, not with rage yet, but with disbelief. "How?" he asked. No one answered. Dr. Whitmore stood in the corner, arms crossed, already preparing his defense. "These things happen," he said coldly. "High-risk patients don't always make it." Marcus looked up. In that moment, something changed. Not grief. Focus. "May I see my wife's chart?" Marcus asked calmly. "Dar." Whitmore hesitated. "That won't be necessary." Marcus stood. His voice was steady, controlled, and deadly quiet. "It will be." The doctor scoffed, assuming what he always assumed, that this black man was powerless, emotional, and ignorant. He had no idea that the man standing in front of him was a senior FBI agent in internal investigations, trained to dismantle lies piece by piece. And this hospital had just become a crime scene. Marcus Carter stood alone in the hospital hallway long after the staff dispersed. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, cruelly indifferent to the world that had just ended for him. Nia was gone. Their baby was gone. And the silence left behind was louder than any scream. He pressed his palm against the wall and closed his eyes. Grief came in waves, but beneath it, something else was forming. Something cold. Something sharp. Marcus didn't cry. Not yet. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. The screen lit up with a lock-screen photo of Nia smiling on the beach, one hand resting on her belly. He stared at it for 3 seconds, then unlocked the phone and opened a secure contact. "Director Hawkins, DOJ Task Force." Marcus typed one sentence. "I need internal oversight. Possible medical homicide. I'm on site." He slipped the phone back into his pocket. Then he turned around and walked back toward the nurse's station. Dar. Alan Whitmore was already working on damage control. He sat in his office, coat draped neatly over the chair, dictating notes into a recorder. His tone was smooth, rehearsed, like a man who had done this before. Patient presented with multiple pre-existing conditions, non-compliant prenatal history, sudden, unavoidable complications. He paused, then added, family was emotional. Aggressive. A knock interrupted him. He looked up, annoyed. Yes. A nurse cracked the door open. Doctor. The husband is asking for records again. Whitmore sighed. I told you people. He's very calm, the nurse said quietly. Too calm. Whitmore stood, straightening his tie. I'll handle it. When he stepped into the hallway, Marcus was waiting. He wasn't shouting. He wasn't pacing. He stood perfectly still, hands clasped in front of him, eyes locked forward. Whitmore forced a sympathetic expression. Mr. Carter, I know this is difficult, but... You failed my wife, Marcus said. Whitmore stiffened. That is an accusation you're not qualified to make. Marcus nodded slowly. You didn't order fetal monitoring. You delayed labs. You ignored a nurse's warning. You labeled her dramatic in the chart. Whitmore's eyes flickered. Those notes are medical interpretation. No, Marcus replied. They're evidence. Whitmore scoffed. Listen to yourself. You're grieving. This isn't the time to make threats. Marcus leaned in just enough for his voice to drop. This is exactly the time. For the first time, Whitmore felt a twinge of unease. 2 days later, the hospital received an unexpected visit. Not from police. From federal auditors. Men and women in dark suits arrived quietly, flashing credentials that made administrators' smiles disappear. Files were requested. Security footage seized. Staff interviews scheduled. Dr. Whitmore watched from his office window as they moved through the building like a slow, inevitable tide. What is this about? He asked the hospital director. The director looked pale. They say it's a routine compliance review. Whitmore knew better. That night, Marcus sat in his car outside a federal building, staring at the steering wheel. He had finally cried, alone, screaming into the darkness until his chest ached. Then he wiped his face, stepped out of the car, and walked inside. In the conference room, Director Hawkins waited, hands folded. I'm sorry, Marcus, he said quietly. About Nia. Marcus nodded once. I don't want sympathy. Hawkins leaned back. You want justice. I want the truth documented, Marcus said. Every lie exposed. Every assumption named. Hawkins slid a file across the table. We pulled Whitmore's history. 3 prior complaints. All from black patients. All dismissed. Marcus's jaw tightened. One nurse filed a whistleblower report 2 years ago, Hawkins continued. She was transferred and later quit. Marcus closed his eyes. They didn't think anyone would connect the dots, Hawkins said. They didn't expect you. Marcus opened his eyes, steady and clear. Neither did he. The investigation moved fast. Nurses were interviewed under federal protection. Security footage showed Marcus begging for help while staff delayed. Audio records captured Whitmore dismissing concerns with phrases like, they exaggerate pain, and these people panic easily. The most damning evidence came from the fetal monitor logs. They had been ordered, after Nia collapsed. Too late. A young nurse named Elena finally broke down during her interview. I tried to tell him, she sobbed. I told Dr. Whitmore something was wrong. He said, I've been doing this longer than you've been alive. When asked why she didn't push harder, Elena whispered, because every time someone does, they get punished. Marcus listened from behind the glass. His hands shook, not with doubt, but with restraint. Dar. Whitmore received the notice on a Thursday morning. Medical license suspended pending federal review. He laughed when he read it. This is ridiculous, he told his lawyer. They can't prove intent. The lawyer adjusted his glasses. Intent isn't the only standard anymore. Whitmore frowned. What do you mean? Negligence tied to discriminatory practice qualifies under federal civil rights violations, the lawyer said carefully. Especially when it results in death. Whitmore's face drained of color. They're using the husband status, Whitmore snapped. That's what this is. Who is he anyway? The lawyer hesitated. You didn't know, he asked. Whitmore's stomach dropped. He's FBI, the lawyer said. Internal investigations. The room went silent. Whitmore sat down slowly. No, he whispered. That's not, he never said. That's the point, the lawyer replied. He didn't have to. The trial was swift and devastating. Marcus took the stand only once. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't accuse. He simply described Nia, her laugh, her plans, the nursery she never finished. He described the moment he knew something was wrong and how no one listened. Then he looked directly at Dr. Whitmore. "You saw my wife as a statistic," Marcus said. "Not a human. And my son paid for it." Whitmore couldn't meet his gaze. The verdict came back guilty on multiple counts: gross negligence, civil rights violations, falsification of medical records. His license was revoked permanently. The hospital settled quietly with the Carter family, issuing a public apology and implementing mandatory bias training, independent oversight, and emergency protocol reforms. But Marcus didn't celebrate. He visited Nia's grave alone. "I did what I could," he whispered. "I hope it was enough." The wind moved gently through the trees. For the first time since that day, Marcus felt something loosen in his chest, not peace, but purpose fulfilled. Justice hadn't brought Nia back. But it made sure she wasn't ignored. Not ever again. If this story moved you, please remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it so these stories continue to be heard. Your support truly makes a difference.